Minister has just claimed. The independent inquiry that his government called found that ministers did not do anything wrong. That was clearly stated by that government's own independent inquiry, and to suggest otherwise is simply untrue. Full stop, end of story. This government are hanging up a massive big for sale sign over New Zealand, and ACC is smack bang in the middle of the fire sale list, because this government are only interested in hocking off everything as fast as they possibly can. Nick Smith's talk of a financial crisis and ACC is absolute nonsense. Look at the financial review from this financial year in question. Over a $2.5 billion in surplus, ACC was. A $2.5 billion decrease in ACC's liabilities. This year, ACC is not now and never has been broke or broken, despite Nick Smith's best attempts to suggest otherwise. Scaremongering by Nick Smith, because the government, this national government, have one agenda in ACC, and that's to carve it up and hock it off. Carve it up and hock it off to their private sector mates, because they don't believe in ACC as it stands now. They believe it should be provided by the private for-profit insurance industry. That is the National Party's sole goal in ACC, is to prepare ACC to be privatised. They can use terms like competition. That is their model of competition is privatisation by any other name. And Nick Smith is offensive enough to go around and say it's no different to deregulating the broadcasting industry. Right. I say there's one major difference. New Zealanders did not give up any of their civil or legal rights under broadcasting law. Under ACC, they have given up their legal rights. They've given up their legal rights to be part of ACC, and this government see that they're giving up their legal rights to be part of ACC creates all sorts of fascinating, interesting, profit-making opportunities for their corporate insurance mates. And I think that's wrong. I think that is fundamentally wrong, and this Labour opposition will be arguing and fighting against the government's plans to privatise ACC. And we send a very clear word of warning to the insurance industry. They will invest in this at their own peril, because a future Labour government, and we've already got a commitment from the Greens to support us in this, will not support this change, and we have reversed the national government's privatisation of ACC before, and we will do it again, This will not stand, because ultimately it undermines ACC, which should be a world-leading scheme, and the government, despite all Nick Smith's scaremongering, have still not come up with evidence to suggest that this will actually work and that New Zealanders will end up with better cover or better compensation as a result of this scheme. Because independent studies, the PricewaterhouseCoopers study, found that ACC is already offering the lowest accident cover in the developed world. Nick Smith's own officials provided evidence to the Select Committee that shows that New Zealand employers are paying, on average, half what the Australian employers are paying for accident cover. Perhaps this is what they meant by catching up with Australia. Load a whole lot more compliance cost onto our employers. That's what this government seemed to think about catching up with Australia, because they certainly don't seem to want to catch Australia when it comes to wages anymore. In fact, Bill English thinks it's a competitive advantage to have lower wages than Australia. But we move back to ACC. This government manufactured a crisis in ACC. ACC is not broke, never has been broke, and it is not broken. This is all part of the National Party's agenda to strip ACC out and to hand it over to the private insurance industry, and New Zealanders will end up paying more to get less, because the only way the private insurance industry will be able to make money out of ACC is by declining more claims or by decreasing cover, and that fundamentally is wrong. And New Zealanders, having given up their legal rights to be part of ACC, deserve better than that. As the Christchurch earthquake showed us, Mr. Speaker, a lot of unforeseen things can happen in this country, and ACC was there when Cantabrians needed it. And the extension of ACC cover that Nick Smith and the government were able to do following the Christchurch earthquake would not have been possible if he had already privatised ACC as he intends to do. Mr. Speaker, Nick Smith and the national government are hanging a massive for sale sign up over New Zealand, over our SOEs, over ACC, over everything else, even over our law books, and saying it's for sale if the foreign investors are willing to pay for it.
Mr. Chair.
I call Hilary Calvert.
Mr. Chair, there has been a lot of agreement about ACC here this afternoon, and I'd just like to recap that. It's been agreed that there was a loss of $2.4 billion in 2007-2008, followed by Labor outdoing themselves with a $4.8 billion blowout in 2008-2009, and a surplus now of $2.5 billion. That is a remarkable turnaround by this national-led government. The opposition have argued constantly and continue to argue this evening that there was never a problem and things are just fine. Well, losing $4.8 billion of New Zealand's money is just not fine. Costs and claims have dropped substantially also, and there is something else to celebrate here. Labor, it seems, equate higher claim costs with success. Lower costs come from fewer claims and improved rehabilitation, and I'm sure employers and employees alike prefer that definition of success. Much has been made of the $638 million savings over 4 years to the non-earners account. Those who object would prefer the government keep increasing that account for all eternity. It is simply not sustainable. When faced with a record national deficit, the country must spend less, not more. We must live within our means, not borrow and hope. And ACC National, again with ACT's help, are on the right track. The proposed extension of the accredited employer program from next April is also to be applauded. Applause? Employers do a far better job of managing injury and rehab costs than the state. The AEP has so far resulted in 12% fewer claims and 15% lower costs. Only 136 major employers are part of the AEP, and it is past time that more were allowed to reap the scheme's benefits. One change that ACT is particularly excited about is the plan to open ACC's work account to competition. This is an ACT initiative and we are proud of it. It is hardly revolutionary, of course. A mix of state and private insurance is the norm in most developed nations. Worked very well when New Zealand last tried it in 1998. Levies went down and so did the number of accidents. It was scrapped by Labor not because of poor results, but poor ideology. Choice forces everyone, employers, employees and ACC itself, to lift their game. Let's put it this way. If a private insurance company suffered a $4.8 billion loss in 1 year, they would be out of business. Unless, of course, the government added them to their long list of taxpayer-funded bailouts. I wish to quote my colleague Sir Roger Douglas at this point. In the same debate 2 years ago, Sir Roger said this about ACC. The real problem with ACC is that it is a monopoly. Monopolies always fail, and they fail for one simple reason. They are not required to offer cost-effective and good quality services to attract customers. Monopolies fail to meet consumer demand because consumers simply have no other choice. Monopolies fail to reduce costs because they have no competition to drive out a high-cost structure. Only competition in this area will make the fundamental changes and restore ACC to some level of reasonable performance. That statement was correct then, it's correct now, and it always will be. And it holds true whether we're talking about ACC or any other part of society. It is worth noting that in 2005, under then leader Don Brash, National's policy was to open all aspects of ACC, except for the non-earners account, to competition. This has always been ACT policy and it remains so. When the government sees the benefits of competition in the work account, we hope they will look to implement their 2005 policy. If they hesitate, ACT will, as we have throughout the ACC reforms.
Call Michael Woodhouse.
Mr Chairman, one of the things that perplexes me is